We're recording. Awesome. Hello, mate. Michael Chapman or Michael David Chapman. What are we going to call you as, mate?
Just call me Michael.
Michael. Awesome. Great to have
MC.
you, man. Great to have you. I know that I cancelled one time because of the infection, so I'm sorry about that. But I think there's going to be so much value here today. Like we're in a fairly similar space in some ways, and I've seen some of your work, particularly on LinkedIn. Now, I think you've got 90,000 on LinkedIn. Is that right?
Something like that.
Doing well. Doing well.
Unless,
How would you describe, man? How would you describe what you do? So people out there who are like, oh, who's Chad talking to? How would you describe it?
yeah, so I do two things in the space that you're talking about. Through my life experiences, which I know oftentimes, sometimes I'll get messages be like, "Man, have all you've experienced is tragedy?" I know it comes off like that, but I speak about that because for so much long, I had so much denial going on. You know, when I came into adulthood, I didn't know how to really cope with it. So I talk about issues uh, related to men that men struggle to talk
Mm,
about, and really talking about it. Once I started talking about it, then it becomes about action. So I really help men
mm,
talk about and process deep issues that are keeping them in a cycle, but really provide a path through those to really break free.
mm.
That's on the men's program. Then I'm a co-founder of a virtual assistance organization where we help B2C and B2B clients do two things: really increase their lead generation on LinkedIn, as well as create content strategy and content services.
Cool. And just so we're on it at the moment, LinkedIn's growing all the time. It's a very popular platform. If people wanted to reach out, what would they do to come and connect with you? And I can post some of that later, but what would they do to reach out to you?
Well, not to be cliche, but 99% of most connection requests don't have a message. And so I've got about 11,000 inbound connection requests that most of them are not personalized. But I'll give you an email address if they're interested in connecting, or if they'll personalize their connection request.
Yes.
I typically see those because you can see the message, but that'd be the best way.
Cool. Cool. In terms of action there, are you talking a bit about accountability?
In what way? In terms of for men in the breakthrough?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just got to speak from my own perspective. I grew up very, very, my personality is I'm a bit reserved, but when I finally engage, I have no problem sharing
Mm,
and
mm,
being vulnerable and being open and telling
mm.
in the right space how I feel or what's going on inside of me. But
Yes.
at some point, it got old. You know,
Mm.
I've been married twice, divorced twice. I mean, you look at it from their perspective. I mean, like, be married to a guy that, is very introspective and vulnerable and can explain what's going on inside of him, but continues to do that. It never gets off that merry-go-round. And so,
Mm,
you
mm.
know, I'm very keen on, when I begin to hear that from a client, to help them get off the merry-go-round with, okay, so what are we doing here? What would you like to see with this narrative, as an example, you keep telling yourself on why the world's bad and what's happened to you? I help people off that merry-go-round through compassion and accountability.
Mm, awesome, man. Awesome. It's something that's continuously on my mind. And I had an example yesterday. So I posted something, and I know because of my history at times, there's a lot of people who care about my welfare. And I posted something yesterday. I'm quite mindful about how I spoke about it. I said that I had some noise, I had some head noise. And that's me trying to be a little bit vulnerable and go into that space. The other thing for me is that I'm in a helping profession. So I go in and I work with people. And it's interesting when I get some feedback that's like, man, I don't know if you should be sharing too much when you're not doing too well. And my not doing too well, I'm still doing well. It's just like, wow, I'm going through some things at the moment, like we all do. Um, some of it's stress, some of it's out of my control. And I share some of that to kind of connect with people. And it's interesting when people are like, you shouldn't be doing that, because then people who follow you and people who are your clients will be like, oh no, he's not in a good place. What are your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
Me too. Yeah. And it's not like I'm like not working and not
I
thinking I'm
want to,
not in
I
a
want to
capacity. I'm just
look,
there to go, hey, stuff's
look,
going
let me
on.
preface it like this. I joke like this all the time. You know, you call yourself a coach, right?
Yeah, consultant, coach, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, I wish there was like a better word. Because I mean, the reality is in that space, it's very saturated. And
Mm,
a lot of times when you look under the hood, including my own, I mean,
mm.
it's like, what qualifies me to coach anybody, especially if I've got some inventory issues that are going on. You know, I haven't met a perfect person yet,
Mm.
and that goes for coaches. And I think what brings the best coaches I've worked with, and I'll even use the word therapist, you
Yes.
know, there's a big difference in coaching and therapy, but I want to bring those two in the same space for this point. You know, it's relatability.
Mm.
And to your point, if I was in your space listening to what you said, because I heard every word you said, you got some head noise.
Noise. Yeah.
I mean, that's human.
You get that, right? You don't need to understand. I've been talking about this for a while. Some of my mates are telling me, and I was working with a young guy the other day, and he's like, man, everyone's talking about head noise. And I was like, all right, it gives me permission maybe on socials to start using it.
Again, if I was your coach and we were in that place, back to what I said, I'd just say, especially if it was your fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth pass in this same narrative, it's like the
Mm,
question there, among other questions, is how long
mm, mm,
you seem to enjoy it.
mm,
And this is
mm,
where the work that
mm,
I do goes into, because oftentimes what I see with head noise, whatever it is,
mm,
not always, but in the people that I attract, because I have no problem talking about grieving. I
mm,
spent years grieving, maybe in some cases longer than I should have, but I've become very comfortable in helping men specifically attach what oftentimes is head noise is often tied to something that needs to be
mm.
talked about in a safe place and typically grieved.
Yeah, interesting.
Coming from the heart.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I would like to go there, but I'm not going to at the moment. I want to ask you, I'm really interested in non-negotiables in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, so I'm not sure what you think, but what I believe is that on the basis of mental health and the basis of good mental health and good performance is habits. Now, also a detriment to mental health and problematic thinking, problematic loops, as we're talking about noise. So the way that I see noise is that, and I used this yesterday, and it's not the best example because everyone talks about it, but you get a little weed in a garden, you can pick it out before it gets roots, and you can pull it out and you can do something with it. If you don't
Yep.
attend to that garden, i.e., you don't do your maintenance, foundations of health and habits, it's going to be harder to control. It gains in strength. The other thing that you were talking about before about people liking it, and some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, is that then we become addicted to the feelings that are associated with the thoughts. And that's when it gets to a new level. And it's like when the body requires us to be stressed, to be concerned. So it sends the chemicals into our body so that our body gets that reaction because it's addicted to these feelings. So we can take it in any way we want. But I kind of like, there's a big influence there for me in terms of that. But the way that I make sense of that is to simply think that there's loops that occur. What is it? 60,000 thoughts we have a day plus, right? Most of it is bullshit. Most of it, until you can train
Probably.
it to work for you. You know, once you can train it, I talk about this. I talk about our mind being a dog. And it's either a dog we take to the park, a dog exercise park, where we can let the little guy off the leash and he runs and he's a legend and it's just so fun and you watch it and go, amazing. He comes back to you when you need to leave and you're the happiest owner in the world. Or you take an untrained dog to the park, he gets into a fight, he never comes back, he runs away and you're just standing there going, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? So if you're able to utilize your mind so it works with you, like yourself, like the way we started this session, you were finishing up another call. You took about 30 seconds, a minute to kind of get in the zone and you're back. Now, if you're occupied up here, there's going to be so many different things that are barriers within your thoughts that stop you from being able to then get into a zone to prepare. So what I'm talking about is that, yes, this can be something which is destructive. And yes, this is quite critical, like can be can be quite critical of ourselves. However, once you can focus it and once you can train it, it works for you. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a story actually. It
Okay.
applies.
Yeah, please.
About a year ago, I found myself. No, that's not fair. That's misleading. I found myself into a position where, from what I could see, I was the only person in an emotional space with another person that, by all intents and purposes, was suicidal.
Mm.
Again, the data, the information that I had, basically there was nobody else. Now, to be clear, I'm not qualified in that space on paper. I'm not. I don't have any education or certifications or credentials, but that's where I allowed myself to go. And the great news story is and it was real. There was no way, it was all over a phone call over about 4-day period. And I led this person to safety. Now, what do you think that was doing? I mean, the risk of that, because if you've ever been in that space, I mean,
I think you see my body language, man.
the people that are qualified to do that, I'm sure they're qualified, but it's not easy. And there's always some degree of legitimate fear on what's going to happen. You know, suicide counselors, I don't know what they call them, that actually do that every day for a living or for free, whatever that is, suicide calls, whatever. But I was in that space. I loved the person deeply. I was emotionally attached, but also to the outcome. But I was also emotionally detached from, I'm in this space. I'm just going to do my best. Okay. Now, fast forward to about a month later, they're getting healthy, they're whatever. And they went back to some of the behaviors that took them a long time to do that brought them to that place. Now, that person wasn't suicidal again. That's not the point. But the same behaviors that led and fostered the root causes that brought them, they started again. And I was okay with that from my perspective. And then not for them, but for me, because I did my job, and where I'm going with this is there was a point a month and a half later where a person came back into my life and it just became toxic and abusive on that end. And I drew a line. Through that process of being someone that helps someone out and maybe having this like hero complex, that's an example of, I think, what you're talking about, where you've brought yourself to this place where it's a person and call the person the weed. I don't think people are weeds. Everyone's value, but people can behave like weeds. There's a difference. Everybody has value, but everybody's behavior doesn't, right? There's a difference. And when this person really turned into really to be honest with you, it became like a betrayal, to be honest, and to be open. And it hurt. I was because of years of trying to be the hero and staying in a place that for too long and allowing myself to be vulnerable and do the right thing. And leaders just don't stand around and be a stand-up guy and save the world and all of this stuff that we do that really at the time was about me, not them. I pulled from that experience and left the door open of, hey, when you get help, I'm your friend. But in between,
Vital point there, man. Vital point. It's me, not them.
Well, and but it was about two things. Protecting myself from abuse and hurt and whatever is one thing, but to not continue to feed my I'm 46, right? Trained dysfunction. Light bulbs and epiphany started to go off at 40, right? Because of the second abort. Like, I'm not living like that anymore. Not because of them, but because I don't have to. And I've got 4 decades to pull from of dysfunction that kind of staying in this like doormat space that really at the end of the day turns in on itself because it was self-seeking the whole time. You understand? Like it was all of that previous stuff was about Michael. Because if I looked at it objectively, and most of the time I shouldn't even been in that relationship or that conversation. And that's not to minimize people that are going through genuine thoughts of suicide. I understand that. I've been there actually. I get it. What I'm saying is there's a time when, back to the garden, when, and I'll say it like this, bring in the faith component, and if I can, I believe God plants trees in our garden. And trees are designed to produce fruit. And really, you can't really expect another tree to be planted of more blessing or opportunity until you can handle the fruit on the tree you have. And in that example, it wasn't like getting another person to work with. It was more like getting to that place of freedom where I could be a powerful person to say no to dysfunction, toxicity, especially when the person's communicating to me, they don't really want help, at least from me.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got to a place of non-negotiables. So you're talking about non-negotiables for the people around you. What I'm super interested in is, what are the non-negotiables you have in your life? Because I know you wear many hats as well. You're the father of 4. What are the non-negotiables you have on a daily basis for you, and what are your standards? And then it seems like there's non-negotiables for the people you spend time with. And you know, for those 2 areas, I'm going to leave it to you which one you tackle first, if there are any.
I think of the word, when I think of non-negotiable, I think of the word power. I mean, power is abused. We understand that. But I began to learn more about genuine power through my divorce recovery. And genuine power, the power to, practice self-control and conflict and deal with situations out of your control and this kind of thing. And so one of the non-negotiables for me, and I fail at it sometimes, in full disclosure, is to give up power, but not the power where, not the power that says, you're not going to tread on me, not the power that says you're not going to take some from me, because that's not real power. I mean, that's the power to say that even though you treaded on me, or even though you hurt me, it won't generate a reaction.
So how do you do that? So how do you practice that skill? So what does that look like on a daily basis? So when the game arrives, i.e. conflict, i.e. frustration, i.e. pain, i.e. injustice, these strong emotions that hit us at our core, what is the daily skills that you do, i.e. maybe they're non-negotiables or maybe they're not, but what do you do on the daily basis to prepare you for those big games?
Well, let's use LinkedIn. I mean, I'm communicating to LinkedIn, right? Yeah. And I'm going to say, I always try to fall on the sword first. Like, I've failed at this. There's been times where, on a post or comment, I've lost the battle of that. But for the most part, I mean, I get my version of trollage like anyone else does. And it just, for the most part, and I've seen a couple of death threats on the platform. I've just seen nonsense that just didn't move me. So when you're putting your stuff out there for the public to see, I mean, that's an opportunity to practice it, because depending on what you're talking about, now you're bringing a faith component into, and like, what is he, a religious guy? What's going on? I mean, that's like holding a 1-iron, on a fairway during a lightning storm, right? Right. So, but so that's anecdotal. Let me be practical. Part of what I pull from is the experience of the opposite. I mean, I used to be very early 30s, very reactionary. And I just got to a point, I just have remembrance. I'm, and like I said before, sometimes I fail, but for the most part, I pull from that experience. I don't want to give you control. It's kind of like the words, and we've seen this, the power of an unanswered text. Yeah. I mean, you can't quote silence. You can't quote silence. What are you going to say when there's silence? I mean, what can someone say? So I practice it by remembrance. I remember what it was like. It's not too long ago when I gave up control and my internal power of self-control over myself to circumstances, to people, to my boss's email that was all caps, you name it. So that's number one. But the other thing is to remember that, on the other side of that attack or that comment or message is a person. I mean, last night, this is no joke. Last night, a potential client reached out for me on the platform through ProFinder. And I mean, he must have been drunk, because he was like, because I I have a name that if you change the first name to Mark, that's the guy that shot John Lennon. I mean, the guy starts asking me if I'm Mark David Chapman. And listen, man, I shared it with a couple of my groups because the first thing was like, man, he's like, the first message was, are you a terrorist? I mean, he couldn't have been in his right mind.
Yeah.
He's got a full-time job. I can see his company. I mean, the risk is all on his end.
Yeah.
And it was just like, my first response was take care.
Yeah.
It was comical. But then when it increased, and this was all over direct messaging, I said, this is unacceptable, unprofessional. Please stop. Like strike 2. And then it was like, have you ever tried to assassinate the president? I was just like,
sorry to laugh, man, but it's comical, right?
Dude, join the club. I mean, pop some corn. I was laughing too. It didn't move me. It just didn't move me because I was just in a good place. Now, it leads to the third thing. Positioning and proximity. It's very difficult to have that self-control if you've got yourself in the weeds. If you've got yourself in a bunch of nonsense, endless loops of arguments with your kids, your spouse, your boss,
yourself,
and at the root of that, you've got unforgiveness. You've got unforgiveness turning to bitterness. I mean, an unforgiving person, a person who can't practice forgiveness, is going to crush that guy. Is going to do a screenshot. Because I did share it with my group, but I cropped out his name. I sent it for humor, and I said, listen, guys, I get it too, right? I get it too. But nobody saw the guy's name. And he called me Mike. I don't like that. Like, my name's Michael. He did it on purpose, right? It was just, he was shoving me, and it's just completely unprovoked. And I'm just better at that now because I've been able to release things. Like I started this call, I've grieved so many losses, and there's just, while there's still some work to do, not like it was when 6 years ago you would have sent me that message, I'd still be going at it with that guy.
Yeah.
I had to have the last word because it was, Chad, it was completely unprovoked. He's sending me a request for a proposal as a career coach on Profile.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. So that's relevant. That happened in the last 12 hours.
I try to, what's helped me, and again, nowhere near your numbers, But what I know is that, and I've been posting now for like 3 years. One of the things that had the biggest impact on me, that supported me to kind of work out how I'm going to manage trolls and manage some people who come at me for a number of different reasons. I don't have too many, but there are some. And simply it came back to some of Tim Ferriss's work. And he just said, listen, I treat this like my house. So if someone's going to walk into my house and disrespect my house or me in my house, they're not going to be allowed in my house. And that just enabled me to do it like very easy. So when someone writes something to me, I don't sit there and I don't read it through and why did they do this? Why? I just simply look at it, delete it, and move on. And if they do it again, I had to block someone close to me because they posted something which just didn't fit. And I don't agree with. I hope they understand, but if they don't, I'm happy to have a conversation. But don't do that. This is my life. And it's not only for us, it's not only business. It's not business, it's me. Like, we need to be, like we're both talking now, we're talking real. And it comes back to that vulnerability. Yeah, we can be vulnerable, but really what we want to be is authentic. So really it's like we can place ourselves in this situation where we're going to come to an intimate level in your life. So we're going to expect you to share with us and come with us, get there through rapport, but we're going to have to come into your mind and come into your heart and come into your life and relationships to help you move forward. Now, I think I do that, and I think I achieved the message like at the start by saying, yeah, there's some stuff that's going on at the moment. Now, the interpretation from others is, oh my gosh, is it cancer again or what's going on? It's not. It's business. It's life. There's things that are going on. And it's simply just saying, listen, I've come through a lot of things, and I went through a fairly significant period where I was like zero, and I was on in such a good place. I'm still very happy. I'm still moving forward. But there's things that I'm just continuously learning. And if I'm in the process of kind of being vulnerable, that means I need to talk a little bit more. But the interesting thing for me, and I'm keen to hear some of your thoughts, is that I then don't want to place too much emphasis on it at times. Like, I know from when I was blogging about, I blogged anonymously when I got diagnosed with cancer. So I got diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer back in 2014, had a life expectancy of under 2 years, and it's come back twice
Yeah.
since then. But during that first stage, when I was a 29-year-old man, looking at the software that I had then as well. So let's think of ourselves as iPhones, like maybe we're a 10, maybe you're, whatever we are. Like back then we were as good as we could be. However, our software wasn't at the stage that it is now. So we're trying to think about yourself, the first sort of challenges and traumas that you went through compared to how you go about it now. You've upskilled, right? Your software is much better. So you're more equipped to go, okay, I've got a bit of a strategy for how I'm going to go about it. Like me, once I register that something's going on here, and I know that because I think I'm fairly attuned to my data points within my body. So I know that when my mood's a little bit flat, when my focus isn't in, when my energy's out, when I'm a little bit irritable, when it takes me a little bit more time to concentrate. Like there's these little things where I'm like, I know something's going on up here. And there always is something going on up here before I notice those other things going out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that back then. And once I know now, I'm like, okay, cool. I know I need to do X, Y, and Z. I've got an exercise for my mind. I've got a writing activity. I smash the gym. I use my body, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got this like my own blueprint, which kicks in, and it seems you've got a similar one as well. But we couldn't have had that as younger men.
Well, what I'll say is going back to the platform and in life, I don't remember who I stole this from. It might have been from a pastor, an author on a podcast. I'm not sure. And this is a tactical, practical example to use, especially if you have a situation where there's space. And usually when you're being attacked on a social media platform, there's always space. There's a ton of time if you're going to respond at all, right? When I have the most success in the digital space and or in the real world, right? When somebody's coming at me, attacking me unprovoked, is to ask this question of myself. So here's like you talked about software, here's a chip you can put in.
Yeah.
Okay. And the question is, what story do you want to tell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the other side of this response, on the other side of, let's say, this reaction, on the other side of this fill in the blank, what story do I want to tell anyone, much less my kids, my spouse, whoever you have in your life? That question is it's like handcuffs on stupidity. Because if you get honest with yourself, you just go up to the mirror and say, okay, what story do I want to tell when I'm going to let this person have it on a text? In 5 years, in 5 minutes, and I've got to tell the story to my 17-year-old daughter, what do I want to tell? Do I want to tell a story that this person and what they did or what they said, what they stole, whatever, controlled your dad? Because guess what? I mean, when you got a gallery, in my case, I have 4, and I get it wrong sometimes. I want to be very clear. They've seen dad get it wrong. They've seen me. You couldn't have asked me that question. I'd have been like, what story do you want to tell? I wouldn't have heard it. But where I have the most success is when I pull from that question.
Sure.
Because
I love this.
It puts handcuffs on behavior. In the short term, energy comes down, the temperature comes down, and now cooler heads typically, in this case, prevail.
I love this, and it's because I think that there's an emphasis, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the story part of it is preparation. So you've got to have that conversation with yourself beforehand at times. Because when the response comes and we get the trigger, it'll be interesting to see what you think. If you haven't prepped that, if you haven't prepped the idea of creating and constructing stories, which changes meaning for you, are you going to be able to respond like that in a time where there's a significant challenge? If you haven't practiced the skill, are you able to do it? Or if you are able to do it, how do you do it? And how can you share with us? Does that make sense?
It does.
It's a hard question.
Do what?
Maybe it's a hard question. I'm not sure. But I'm interested to see what you think.
What's the question? Because I heard it sounded like a long preface. What specifically?
Yes. So it would be, if you are in a situation where you need to construct a story and you're there when when it hits you, so when you
Yeah.
feel affected by it, what helps you to maintain and construct this story when it's significant? Because at the moment, when we're not in a heightened state,
I love it.
yeah.
I don't want to, like, for me, it comes from this, like, having to tell so many stupid stories.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's terrible. Like, I make it sound like I never got much right, but the ones I got a lot. I've got. Look, we get more right than wrong. Okay, I felt every second of my second divorce, and I went into a place where I went out of my way to protect, because I had denial, right? But I went after it in my writing. I went after it in group therapy. I went after it with male mentors. I went after it with a therapist.
Mm.
And I was looking for common denominators about myself. I had a female therapist, I had 3 male mentors, I had a divorce group, and my
Mm.
writing.
What did the denial look like, mate? How did it look like? How did it surface in your thinking? Do you remember that? Because I think that's going to be useful for some guys out there who are listening. What did it look like?
2 things: recurrence and getting tired. I mean, when you have the recurring, let's start with behavior and work inward. Okay, we have the recurring behavior that you're responding to your ex-mate like you're responding to your child, like you're responding to your boss or a client, over different approaches to you or criticism or whatever. That gets old, especially when the people you want to stay in your life start to leave,
Mm.
number one. But then those are the common denominators that just wore me out. And so you
Mm.
go to share that with,
Mm.
hey, Chad, you're my mentor. You're my accountability partner. You're my coach. You're my whatever.
Mm.
And you're a
Mm.
pretty smart guy. And you look at me and you say, like, you can see it. You can see it. I am still holding on, as an example to your point. I'm still holding on to the marriage, or I'm
Mm.
still holding on to a relationship. I'm
Sure.
still holding on to the fact that I got fired, or whatever it is for men. Okay.
Mm-hmm,
Or anyone.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
When
mm-hmm,
you have somebody in your life that sort of lets you wear out,
mm.
and you're worn out because you're a good person and you're trying to break through. That's what it looked like for me. I had very compassionate people in my life that
Mm.
let me wear out and finally looked at me and said, and I've said this on a video before, okay, like almost as if to say, as a grown adult to a grown
Mm.
adult, okay, son, are you ready to listen?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went after the now. I began to write about it. I began to talk about it. I
Mm.
began to realize it was the core of all of these issues, like rage, anger, abandonment, fear. I mean, these splinters that came from this
Mm.
wounding and
Mm.
woundings. I went after the denial. And so on a daily practice, every time. So one of the recurring, like, thoughts that took me back into
Yes.
denial was when something would happen in the separation, when I was in the separation and then subsequent divorce. If I found, I like spent time writing down the way things felt and the way I thought during the separation.
Good.
2 years
Very good.
after the separation and a year after the divorce, I'm writing the same things down.
Gotcha. Not surprising. Habits,
What?
patterns,
It's patterns.
patterns, man.
And finally it turned into, like, what I thought was like, okay, it's time to open the hands to heaven, let go. It just took time, and it was the ego, man. It was just
Mm.
the ego, denial. It just takes time.
Do you remember what's?
You finally wear out and you say, I want something better.
Mm. So
I
then
don't
it
know if
needs to be the
I don't know if
long.
I answered your question.
No,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
it's cool. That means I need something better. I want something better.
Mhm.
I deserve something better. We stay stuck at this period for a while.
Yeah.
Generally, we don't act. Generally, we don't act then. It
Yeah, you just
takes
wear out.
something more
That's me.
significant for us to wear out. Yeah, I get it. And the
Look,
wearing
man,
out
I'll
is
tell you
different.
something. I'll tell you, when I went to my first meeting in divorce care, which is
Mm.
a program here in the States at most churches, right? It's like 13 weeks. I went through it 3 times. The
Mm.
very first meeting, they were talking about, there was a guy, I forgot his name, Todd or somebody. And he's very transparent, but he's like, you know, I've been in this for 8 years.
Mm.
8
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
I
8
know.
years, comma. Wait. 8 years, comma. Still holding on to the marriage. And listen, I remember look at how like condescending I look right now. I'm doing that for effect. Man, guess what? I spent 3.5 like that.
Mm.
You see how that works?
Mm. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why?
Because first I was judging him.
No, but why did you stay
That's
three and a
another.
half years?
Why did I?
Mm.
Well, I'll go through, this is on the fly, but because I was busy looking at what other people were doing. Denial kept me looking at Chad. And
So
what
you're
my
looking at
dad did. Wait.
looking
And
at
what my
Todd.
dad did.
Why is he
And
there for 8 years?
hey, look. Oh, why was he?
No, you're thinking, look at Todd, he's there for 8, and it
Well, listen.
allows you to.
First off, I started the program when we were still married. So I was in a separation and denial, holding on, trying to fix it, trying to, catch up, whatever. All the stuff men do when it's too late, whatever. Hear me out. So I walk in, I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. What are we doing? Like, I was just so judgmental, right? I felt like I didn't belong there, but nobody made me go there. I said, I'm going to go anyway because I just know I need to be here. But so I judged him. I don't remember thinking, oh, this guy's messed up. It happened right here, like from here to there, somewhere in there. It wasn't audible. I didn't think it up, but here's the point. It was a symptom of the self-hate that I had for myself, because I'm sure I'm subconsciously thinking, if that was me, I would think less of me.
What helped you construct some of these new stories? So what are sort of some of the themes that other people could listen to your story? If they're listening to your style of story and go, well, Michael was able to create new stories and walk away from the denial story. What helped you? It seems like peer group for sure. You had some influential people that are around you. You had some reading, you had some writing that enabled you to express. You were talking, so you had therapy, but as I said before, you had these people, and that comes back to this idea that I talk about of an A-team. So it's a combination of family, friends, but also professionals at times who can fill that gap for what can be missing, to allow us to get to that space and maybe have the skills as well to not come in and judge, not come in to be biased, but have our back, but in a way that family and friends may not at times, because it's just simply being able to sit there with you, be able to listen, be able to give it back and help you kind of construct what this new story is.
At the top of that list, okay, I'm going to use the analogy we all understand. Like when you're trying to lose weight, you got 10 pounds to drop, or you've got major weight you need to drop. How do you do that, right? At the end of the day, you do things you don't want to do.
Oh man. Yeah.
Okay. So let's use that same thing in this space. You do it when you don't feel like it, because I don't care how good your workouts are. At some point, even the most fit people in the world don't feel like doing it. They do it anyway, right? I had so much hate for myself. I had so much hate for the situation. I had so much hate for everyone involved, you name it. And when I didn't feel, and that is all coming from here, my friend. Leaders lead from the heart. The heart's the wellspring. And so written over that heart was all kinds of hate. How it got there is a whole nother podcast. But I just began to write love notes to myself.
Was it that the heart was like that, or the heart was closed and then it was just the noisy head up the top? Do you know what I'm saying?
It was closed. It was open to the hate, closed to the love, and we go cliche. But what I'm saying is, I wrote thousands of notes, either on the other side of some type of emotional response or reaction to a situation, or preemptively when I had dead space, I would write. It wasn't always that, but I got on a steady diet of writing. When I say love notes, let me clarify that for your listeners. Specific message of love for myself, specific message of love for my dad that left, specific message of love for my spouse, my ex-spouse I knew wasn't coming back, even though I didn't feel that way about her.
Okay.
It's here's the point. It's impossible, just like it's impossible to go to the gym when you don't feel like it and something not happen. It's impossible to write over hate notes of love and not change. Not in the short term, but in the long term.
But again, if we look at the system as software, then if we input data, the data is then going to change the software.
It changed my perspective.
Yes.
And you know what it started to do? Because shoes were dropping left and right. Like, when is this going to stop? It's been through a divorce. It's like, whether they want it or not, it's very, can be very chaotic. When is this going to stop? When is this going to, I stopped that. It helped me stop asking that question. I was like, part of the reason it didn't stop because I'm not stopping, you know?
Yeah.
I'm still doing my same version of stupid, you know, in response and whatever. So that's number one tactic I would tell anybody, because it's, here's what I'm saying. I did it all right here on the cell phone. Yeah. It's impossible to read your BS for so long. It's impossible to read your own BS of hate.
But don't you also think that perspective changes on your BS after you get it out? So you can say anything up here and you get so occupied by it. But once you need to construct it into a sentence and put it into something, whether it's thumb to phone or whether it's pen to pad,
right,
then it turns into matter, right? So once it turns into matter, it's something. And after it's something, it's better than being in here because you get it out. And the best thing, what I like to do, man, I say there's times when I need to do it. And you'll know if I get up in the morning and I start writing, there's something here that I need to process out. And what I do is I have an A4 page, and I've got a rule that the top half is me being so honest with myself. Honesty that makes me throw that stuff in the bin or burn it afterwards, because it's like the depths of honesty.
Trash.
And it's, oh man, it's hectic. And you just like, but allowing me to say these things that I shouldn't say and I can't say, whether it's because it's who I am as a person or what people around me or what the world we live in governs us not to say. And it's not like there's nothing coming out here, which it's just the mind can be crazy and it wants you to tell you all sorts of things. And I've had to do this in the past. So I've had to go, okay, I'm quite fearful that I'm going to die. And I'm fearful that these symptoms that I've got at the moment are indicators of blah, 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 blah. It's all there. But if I allow myself to just spill that out or vomit it onto the first page, that allows me then to not hold anything. But for that to work, you need to be super, super honest. And then my rule is after I hit halfway, I then need to change it. So the bottom half then counters everything that I've said above, looks for exceptions, and then shows my optimism and my unwavering belief. And people who are listening to this, but it's not unwavering belief if you set it up at the top. No, it is. All I'm doing is spilling this out first and then instructing myself after. I finish by dotting the page. I rip it up. I don't want to read it. Well, and I'm done.
We did the same thing. So this is the way I'd say, instead of one half in a day or a 10-minute sitting, my one half was over months.
Wow. Yeah.
Watch this. So you know what preceded the love notes?
The
hate notes.
Yeah.
I got tired of it, man. Like I just, and some of the hate notes would be in therapy. They did just garbage. So mine's the same process, but it was like I got it all out over time with no love, no positivity, whatever coming out of this mouth, this heart, whatever. Where I just got tired of reading my own.
My other rule, man, is
I just got tired of reading.
Pen isn't allowed to leave the page, so I'm not allowed to think. So I just need to be able to get there, do some breaths, know what's coming, and then I just need to get there and write. So that's why that's why it's fast, because I don't allow myself to think about it. I need to just have this. There needs to be this process in place where I'm just like spilling, consciously aware shifting. And that's just one little thing. It doesn't work for all people, but it can be quite helpful.
Yeah.
Something
So
that
it's,
you go, yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say, like, look, man, we lead from the heart.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because of that, if the heart's bent, so goes so many other things, so many other things that could be unbent, stay bent, or get bent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I didn't invent that. I just
Mm.
finally subscribed to that because I just got tired and I wanted to get to a place where I say this all the time and it sounds terrible, where I could be human again or be human for the first time. And what I mean by
Mm.
human, like really being in control of my response and my reaction to things. And do I get it wrong? Sure I do. Like, I'm known for getting on a plane and doing a video and dropping it on LinkedIn of just some nonsense going on at airport. People think I'm angry, but it's really comedic and I probably shouldn't do it. But here's the thing, my content's usually so serious, I need to do more laughable things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you got to try things, right? You got to try some silly stuff. You're not going to get it right all the time, but it can be quite fun. Hey, I'm listening to this thing at the moment, mate, and it's really taken me. It generally happens every 2 weeks. Generally, I come upon something and I'm like, whoa, that is amazing. And what I'm at the moment, it's looking at addictions, but then it can work out of there. But it's based on 3 principles. The principle is, you've probably heard it. Principle is be authentic, sacrifice the outcome. It's gone from me the last one, sorry. And be comfortable in discomfortable work, or do uncomfortable things.
Sure.
Amazing. There's a TED talk about it. It's crazy, the application of that, about like just allow that to sink in. So be authentic. So that means we've got to be honest at all times. Sacrifice the outcome. So that means I'm going to be honest and going to be authentic regardless of what occurs. And I'm going to have to do uncomfortable things. So I'm going to have to jump in a cold shower before I come here because that's what I do to flush my system. Or I'm going to go to the gym yesterday when my mood was foul. Like when you know that your mood's not good at all.
Instead of posting about it or something. Instead of posting about it, get to the gym.
Get to the gym. And it's that day when it's like, I know there's enough knowledge now to be like, I know when I walk out, it's going to be fine. But It doesn't stop that little mind going, this could be the day when you turn around. This could be the day when you don't go to the gym. And you get in there, I've got a set routine. So I always have a set routine, which I start with, which is 3 exercises, right? So I do some things for my legs to start with. So it doesn't, because you're in there, I pick up the weight and I just start. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. And that's the thing. Like I said this to my yoga teacher last night. I was like, I love yoga. But if you asked me halfway through a yin pose when I'm holding something for 2.5, 3 minutes, and I've still got another 2 minutes to go, and my mind's going, I want to stop. Do I love this? No, I don't. Do I enjoy it? Probably not. But the outcome. So when I leave there, I just feel so good. I feel so good. Like the gym, I actually feel my body now. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. I'm not sure if this can even be possible. I actually feel myself growing in energy as I'm in the gym. So by the time I walk out, I'm just like, if I can go back to that guy and just like punch him, right? I wouldn't, I'd shake. I don't know what I'd do. Or maybe like you, I'd give him a hug. But the result that I get changes from how I was in there. And it is by doing uncomfortable things.
Agreed.
What's some of the things what else has helped you? So what else helped you at some of your darkest times? So let's go to suicide, right? So in a situation where you're able to think, or you're in a position where that becomes a possibility or an option. So that shows that it shows the extent of how low you are.
Mm-hmm.
What helped you to get to the side of where you are now? Like what helped you get through that?
It's always the writing. Because again, my reason for that was, and this, again, it's my journey, I think it's fair to say that I've victimized myself in my thinking. I mean, patterns of thinking over years. And never getting or asking or getting help for that. Mm-hmm. And I don't even mean like psychological help. I mean, just like basic agreements that I had made on what it meant to be a man, what it meant to do life, what it meant to be a father, a spouse, whatever. Okay. Over decades.
Mm,
I'd say definitely always the writing, always go to the writing, because again, it's staring you back in the face.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
in that moment was reaching out for help.
Sure. Okay. And
Yeah.
how
I mean,
was
like,
that? That was that's some early work around your vulnerability, right? So that's like,
that
okay.
was early on though, man. That was early on in that process.
Hmm.
I never
How
went
did
back.
you reach out, man? How did you reach out, and why?
Yeah. Well, so I talk about isolation all the time. Just men typically, men need to be leaders, men need to be strong.
Mm,
That mentality, while it may be true, done and understood the wrong way, will have a man isolating himself when he needs.
mm,
So, but for me, it was just realizing I had way more to be here for than to not, and realizing that I needed help to unpack what was
mm,
taking me to those places.
mm.
So it was going back to an inner circle that I already had
Yeah.
and saying, look, I need to be, like you said, authentic. I feel despair and hopelessness right now.
Mm,
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of that. I've got kids that need me, but I can't lie about it, because the lie or the
mm,
denial, I am supremely confident it's going to take me back to a place that I shouldn't be in.
mm. Deep, man.
Yep.
And what about the response when you first reached out? What was that like?
Open arms. I mean, these are people that watched me kind of do it. These are men, by the way. When I say people, these were men that, like, you're supposed to make an appointment and you don't
Mm,
show up. You're
mm,
supposed to do that text, that call, that accountability thing. You don't do it.
mm, mm,
Are you okay? I'm here. I love you. If you need me, that kind of stuff. And no response. But when I wore out and it sort of brought me to my knees, they were open arms.
mm.
Mhm.
Essential, right? For
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
received at
Hmm.
that time.
Sure.
Because if you're going through that process, they already seem to have an understanding that things aren't right.
Yeah. They know.
And you need in that point someone to be like that, not to be like, what have you been doing? Why haven't you been there? Why haven't you been
Mhm.
calling me? Because then again, what we spoke about before is that that's not really about the other. That's all about self,
Sure.
right? And what you need at those times is someone that can have empathy, and someone that can be there for you.
Yeah. Who's unbiased
Yeah. How
to
did
your.
you find out? How did you locate? And how would you have? So how did you locate those people? And how did you know that, okay, this is someone that I can talk to when I am at my lowest? What
Mhm.
helped you to find and locate those people in your life?
Man, I prayed for them. I got to the end of a solid decade and change of just doing life. I'd find, when we would move with my work, we would plug into a new community. And it
Mm,
always felt like I was on the outside looking in of, men's groups or
mm,
foursomes on the golf course or whatever. And I just didn't engage for whatever reason.
mm,
Maybe
mm,
trust, who knows what it was.
mm,
But it, I don't know. I didn't journal the day that it happened, but I woke up one day. I just felt oppressed that, like, man, I need strong guys in my life. I didn't grow up with one, right? And so that sounds like an excuse. I realized I had because I didn't have a dad,
mm,
that I couldn't count on men,
mm,
which
mm,
is complete, horse crap.
mm.
But that's the horse crap that I let. And I mean, I can tell you stories
Well, that's the
of,
story that you had about men, and the story you have now
yeah,
about men has changed,
yeah,
and that's
like,
through action. And
there's men I've met on this platform that
mm,
I will call like that and say,
yeah,
"Hey, I'm all I'm all bent here. Can you can you sit me down in a seat and put the dunce hat on me or something?" Like, but honestly, I prayed for him. I looked up and I said, "God, please send men.
mm, mm,
I can see it now. I can see the people that tried to help that I pulled away from, that, when, in 2000, 13, we shouldn't have done another move, but we did. My marriage was in no condition for that. And there were people in the periphery. They didn't hear the whole story of why I'm moving, just whatever. Like these were good guys, good that just loved me and, but I just didn't trust it for whatever reason. And when a couple of years later, please send men. And within like 2 months, but it wasn't like they came out of the sky. I mean, I had to get up, out of the bed, out of my routine and go places and just, and give. How did I do it? I gave and people just gave. And then there was a couple that were already in the periphery that kind of I could see you were struggling, let's start meeting. I mean, it happened pretty quick. It was submission. I get beat up all the time when I talk about submission, but I submitted to a new process, just like losing weight.
Have you lost weight in the past?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went through the divorce diet.
Okay. Yeah. What did you get up to?
Well, when I moved to New Hampshire, man, I was like 240.
240.
I'm 5'11" and a half.
Okay. 240.
Okay. That's not healthy.
Okay.
And through my separation divorce, I got down to like 181. I'm a healthy 200 now. I'm like 200 now.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, there's the adrenaline that you're not eating or whatever. But I became a gym rat and it was healthy, but I mean, there was some external motivation, like this is going to help save it. Right. There's all that bull crap going on, but I definitely learned how to cut out stuff that I was addicted to, like sugar and flour and.
Can I ask a question here? So
sure.
If you're in a situation where you had to reach out to someone again, maybe your faith wasn't so strong, and that's and then that's I'm not trying to take that away, but if that wasn't there, how could you go about trying to connect with people to share some of that pain or to try to put some of that pain down? If you're a man out there, what could you do?
Well, we got to remember, like when we're suffering, and let me use two words, knowingly and or unknowingly. You're like, what do you mean unknowingly? I mean, men are suffering. There are all kinds of men suffering and they don't know it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? Okay. But once you get to the knowingly part, when people are suffering, they don't think they have a lot to give. Because there's a deficit, there's lack, there's lack or perceived lack, or there's true lack, whatever. And part of that is like what kept me going to group, the divorce care group was, I had a couple of train wreck divorces, right? But I had a lot of insight from those because I'd lived them. And so I'd go and hear story and be like, wow, that's interesting. And somebody'd say, what do you do with blah, 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 blah. And I had some experience there. I had some win there. What do you do when your 10-year-old wants his parents to get back together? I hadn't had that experience yet, but I had other experiences. What I'm saying is when you're suffering, when you're in lack, you always have something to give. So what is the answer to your question? Get out of your house. I've said this on multiple posts. Get out of your house, walk 50 yards in any one direction, and look for somebody to give to. And I promise you will find somebody, number one. And number two, it has a way of getting you out of that moment, especially if it's good old-fashioned off-the-shelf self-loathing. I'm not talking about suicide. I'm talking about like we're going through problems and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're doing that deal. You're doing that dance. And giving somebody when you don't think you have something to give has a way of really shoring up.
What could people give when they're in that situation where they're like, what do I have? I don't have anything.
That's not the question. That's not the question.
What's the question?
The question is, how quick can I get out of my house and open up myself? Because you'll talk yourself out of it. You don't have anything to give.
Of course. Yeah.
You're feeling sorry for yourself. She left you. He left you. You just lost your job. You don't have enough money in your checking account. Fill in the blank. It doesn't really matter.
So the the foundation for this is
The question
everyone
is
has
when.
something to give, or you have something to give. If you're
Correct.
listening, you have something to give.
You have something to give.
You don't know you have something to give, and you don't feel that you have something to give, but you have something to give.
The question is not what. The question is when are you going? Not what. It'll happen when you get there. I don't care if you go down and pick up a spoon and serve food at a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
How about that for optics?
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm mindful of time.
Yeah, you went over. That's all right.
Yeah.
You talk the most. I think you talk more. No, I talk more than you.
Okay. One thing, right? What are we going to see of you in 24 months? 24 months from now, what's happening for you?
Well, I'm writing a book about, one of my mentors, I was telling him I'll write a book because really a lot of my life, most of my life has really just been marked with a lack of being content. I don't mean content with like missing goals and I'll just take the scraps of life. I don't mean that. I mean like what really turned into and made me more of a malcontent. And so underneath the hood of all the stuff I accomplished, and I mean, I've been in some leadership situations. I was truly blessed with great teams and got to lead people and still hear from them today. And thank you, Michael, and thank you, Joe. You did whatever. Man, I was very. So I'm writing. Some of it's going to be. I'm not sure how many chapters we got so far, but I've started to write it. I'm going very slow with it because I'm writing story from the past. So I've written about 3 chapters and I've had to put it down and I'm in no hurry, but 24 months, I think I'll beat that. And then I've got a podcast that I'm planning for 20. And I'm just sort of watching. I already have a structure. It's actually sitting right here. One of my good friends, I've got a couple of good friends that have helped me structure it, but I'm in no rush and no hurry because some of what's still happening that's shaping both the book and the podcast is still happening.
Yeah.
And so I'm in no rush for that, but that's 2 things.
Okay.
Sure.
I look forward to both, man. I've really enjoyed today. I think there's going to be a lot of value for people out there, man. I know I took a lot from this. I loved it. Anything you want to close with, man?
No, just thanks for the opportunity. I hope people, I've tried to make some of my responses something really different than what I've had before. So I appreciate that. I'm glad we didn't script a lot. We sort of just went with a conversation. That I think those are the best. I find myself in more authentic dialogue.
Yes.
Some of what I've shared is a bit redundant, but I think there's been some new stuff that some of your approach and questions kind of brought me to a different place. And so I appreciate that. I hope people just, the takeaway, one takeaway is like, is to protect your power. When I say power, not to lord over somebody or do something nefarious or anything like that. The power of self-control, the power of your thoughts, power of your silence. I always say the power to taste salt. What does that mean? When you bite your effing tongue and you feel a bit of blood because you're in a tough situation, that's the power to enjoy salt.
Yeah.
I mean, because words matter. And I've been on the other end and certainly put people on the other end of my hurtful words. So protect your power, man.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Okay. It's been good talking. So I'll send you this will take a while to download, but I'll send it to you on Telegram when I get it.
Please do. Yeah. How do you want me to then? You happy? I'm just going to put it up on YouTube. Then we'll usually do a little cut, do an intro on LinkedIn, and then do the same thing on Insta. Anything else you recommend? Or
no, that's good. That's where those are the 3 places I am. So just send me what you got and I'll post accordingly. And
yeah. Hey man, not now. I know you're rushed, but it'd be cool to get some feedback from you as well about how this was and what I could do to improve and what areas you weren't sure how I pushed in or anything you've got to kind of help it out.
I think the only thing is we talked over each other a little bit.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell when you were ending, but other than that, it's fine.
Cool.
It should be life's messy. Podcast can be too.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
There's a lot of rich content here for people.
Cool. Thank you,
Take
mate.
care, brother. See you
Thank
soon.
you very much, mate.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye bye.